Hello and welcome, everyone. Pucks and Brews is back, better late than never, with the Western Conference Finals underway, and pretty interesting first two games of each series, one each. But without further ado, I am your host, Michael Shade Sparacino, alongside, as always, my co-host Liam, the Chellmaster Godimer. Liam, what's up?
What's going on? Shell Masters here, like you said, better late than never. But yeah, no, a lot of stuff to talk about today. And what are we going to start with, Shades? Right, our beloved New York Rangers, or
Well, first off, we're gonna start with me taking the first sip of my coffee because
got to do that.
I desperately need this Dunkin' cold brew. Still not sponsored. We're working on it, but
You
here
seem
we
a little
go.
tired, Shades.
Okay, that helped ever so slightly.
There you go,
Yeah, dude, for working the Met game last night, which I know you enjoyed.
dude. That was the greatest game I've seen in the last 5 years. I mean, that was insane. I mean, from the grand slam for Pete and the game-winning hit, it was a fun time.
Actually, quick story. So it was bottom of I think it was the 10th. It might have been the ninth, but I'm standing around with a couple of my coworkers, and I'm just like, you want to know what would be nice if this game just ended right now and they didn't tie it? And as soon as I finished saying that words, all you heard was the bat just ding, and I'm just like, please no tie, please no tie. It ended up being a flyout, and then they ended up winning that half inning. So I was very happy.
Yeah, for sure. That was a fun game, short extra innings. And like, so are you like, can you see what's going on, or are you like in the concourse? Like,
Depends where I'm at.
oh, okay. So
Most spots I can see what's going on. I had reliefs yesterday, so I was able to take some sneak peeks at the game.
must be pretty cool though, like when you like are like away from the field, like just to hear the crowd's reaction, like you already know like
Yeah,
something
I love
something big
making that
happened.
joke with the coworkers. Like when we hear, oh, it's like I think something good happened, and then when we hear
Absolutely.
nothing, it's like, is everything going okay up there?
Yeah, it's been a lot of that this year for the Mets. So this
Yeah.
week's been kind to us.
Apparently there were a lot of fights last night too. Thank God I didn't have to deal with any of that.
Was there? Oh, okay.
Apparently, I didn't see any of them firsthand. But man,
Oh,
people at sporting events, man, just it's not
oh,
that hard
trust
to
me.
not get thrown out.
Absolutely.
It's really not that hard. But
Mhm.
I digress. So yeah, we have a good bunch of topics to talk about, quality topics to talk about. And well, let's start off with our bread and butter. So, the season ends for the Rangers at least, after they get eliminated by the Devils, and Gerard Gallant is no longer the coach, as we all know by now. Sorry, we couldn't get an episode sooner. It's just our work schedules just suck.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's gone. The rest of the coaching staff is gone. And yesterday we got a bombshell piece of news. Okay, well, not really bombshell, but just a very surprising and shocking piece of news that the Rangers let go of their head athletic trainer, Jim Ramsay, which caught me completely off guard. What are your thoughts on that?
The Rangers didn't really have a lot of manpower lost due to injuries this past season. So, if it was an injury riddled season and you saw guys like Zibanejad and Panarin and Fox and Shesterkin constantly getting injured, then I'd understand the move. But just going throughout the year, Shades, and let me know if you agree. I mean, there were a couple of injuries that were a little questionable. I mean, Ryan Lindgren went down with the shoulder injury. I don't think he was ever back to 100%, even in the postseason. I think Truba was dealing with an injury throughout the season. I mean, his play was just so abysmal early on, and throughout the entirety of the regular season and a little bit into the playoffs as well. That, sometimes you have to think that that could have been a consequence to his poor play. But besides that, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, maybe it's just strength. Maybe it's coming from the strength perspective. Like your young players like Kako and Lafreniere are 3 years into the league, or 4 years into the league for Kako, 3 years into the league for Lafreniere, and they're still getting pushed off the puck and, not able to generate in the offensive zone. I don't know if Jim Ramsey has anything to do with that, but like you said, he's been tenured since 1994, the
Yeah.
year the Rangers won the cup. And now he's gone. So, definitely tip the cap to Jim Ramsey. Thank you for your years of service, but I don't understand the move. I
No, I
don't.
don't understand it either. I am gonna miss during the opening night lineup announcements where he usually gets a big pop from the crowd, as they say in wrestling. So
Love the big pop.
yeah, that was really surprising. Now I understand like teams like players play with nagging injuries all season. This happens with every team. But unless like what you said, unless a lot of players were banged up like minorly and playing through nagging stuff and he was forcing them to play or something okay, well I don't want to say he was forcing them to play, but if he gave them the okay to play, a lot of players are going to be stubborn and play instead of just resting and trying to get back to 100%. But that's just the nature of the game. That's the nature of athletes mentalities. If you're good enough to play, you're probably going to try to convince the coaching staff that you can play, and they're probably going to put you in. But
Right. And just
yeah,
quickly, of note, Jacob Trouba's injury was never disclosed.
shush.
That came on April 5th, that Trouba was injured. And, you know, I also forgot a player that came over at the deadline, and that's Patrick Kane. And, you know, Patrick Kane's hip. Again, I don't know. Maybe was Chicago handling it a little bit better than the Rangers did? And, you know, I mean, you can say what you want, but in my opinion, Blackhawks Patrick Kane this season and Rangers Patrick Kane this season, I mean, he kind of took a dip, you know, when he
Yeah.
came to the Rangers. And I just don't think that he was necessarily the same. I don't think he was great in Chicago beforehand, but I think he was a little bit better. And Tyler Mott got injured as well, but like these are like small time things. And so, I mean, I really can't put a finger on it. But again, thanks for the years of service. And like you said, it's going to be a little bit sad not seeing him get that big ovation at the home opener.
Yeah, and I had a friend put a thought into my head yesterday, which I don't even want to think about. But he basically said, if this team gets rid of Allaire, I'm gonna lose my shit. And if they do, I'm gonna lose mine too. But
I think Allaire is the one untouchable. He has to be.
I hope
I
so.
don't see. Come on, the goaltending has been the strongest aspect of this team's play for almost the last decade plus. So
Even longer.
even longer.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of skipped over the more important firing, but we were just so caught off guard with that one. But yeah, Gerard Gallant, no longer head coach of the New York Rangers. And I mean, you and I were going nuts in the group chat with Brendan. For anybody that wants Brendan back, we're trying. We're trying. He's
Please,
not,
if anybody's going to comment on this video, just make sure you preface it by saying "Bring Brendan back." I think there's power in numbers.
we're trying here. We're trying here. Kid is a busy man. Busy man. But
Indeed.
yeah, so Rangers, they get bounced in 7 by the Devils in let's just be honest with you. Let's be honest here, pathetic and embarrassing fashion. And a lot of that is always going to fall on the coach. And in this particular instance, it did. And let's look at the past 2 years of him as coach, shall we? We had a very overachieving team in last year's team that made it to the conference final. And then we had a severely underwhelming team this year that got bounced in the first round and didn't necessarily look that good after game 2, except game 6. So what I mean, I have my theories, but what are your thoughts on why he got fired?
Look back in the coaching history of Gerard Gallant, shall we? And his first stop was in Columbus. Nothing really of note, but he was let go after 3 seasons, and he failed to have any season with a record over 500. And then he takes almost 10 years off before he goes and coaches the Florida Panthers, the infamous taxi cab incident, where he was just left on a road trip, and Florida was just like, bye, see you later, we don't want you as our coach anymore. And again, that was coming off of a season in 2015-16 where Gerard Gallant had a record of 47, 26, and 9 for the Florida Panthers. That's one of the best years the Panthers have had in quite a while, just based off of the regular season. And then get off to a start the next year. This is the year he got fired, and he was an 11-11 through 22 games. So, okay, say what you want, but just, I think there was a preconceived notion through reading this that within the Panthers organization, we had success. Maybe we overachieved a little bit, and maybe this isn't the guy. Notice that word, overachieved. Who just used that word? You did. And
I
you
did.
used it to describe the New York Rangers. I'll get to them. Of course, Vegas, in their first year with a roster that was not great, of course, had a lot of motivation behind them, of course, in the first expansion draft and quite a bit, all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Overachieving. Okay. They fire him after 3 seasons. And the season that they fired him, before that, he had a record of 24-19-6. That was the shortened season. And then he gets hired by the Rangers. They overachieve, like you said. And then this past year, they get knocked out in 7. This has just been the trajectory of Gerard Gallant's head coaching career. I think it was the right move for the Rangers to move on from this coach. I understand from a PR perspective, it's probably horrible. I mean, look at what this guy did for you guys last year, 52-24-6. That was the best record the Rangers have had since they were running through the Eastern Conference in 2014 and, made it to the conference final in 2015. So, it's a tough move. I feel bad for Gerard Gallant, but clearly, there is an aspect of his head coaching that leaves more to be desired, and we've seen that in 3 straight head coaching jobs with this coach.
Now I'll give him a little bit of a pass with Columbus, because Columbus, just as an organization as a whole, was just not in a good spot around that time period.
Yep.
But
I agree with
you. The Florida one was surprising. The one year I will give him legitimate credit for is that first year of Vegas's existence, because not gonna lie, it was a team of outcasts that did they overachieve? Yes, but did they also play extremely well that entire year? Yes. And
No, they're very
you
good.
got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, definitely got to give him credit. I think he's a coach that can get you only so far. And I feel like I remember that with the Rangers and Alain Vigneault. I was just like, okay, we've reached our ceiling under Vigneault. And I kind of feel like Chris Drury kind of said to himself, I think we reached our ceiling under Gerard Gallant. And I agree.
Yeah, he seems like the term shelf life gets thrown around a lot with head coaching, and deservedly so, but his shelf life really only seems to be 2 years, which is kind of a red flag if you're looking for a coach, because if your shelf life isn't 3 or 4 years, then I mean, that's kind of a problem.
And let me say, like you said, there should be some red flags surrounding Gerard Gallant. I think that there are going to be a lot of teams in the head coaching market that are very interested in Gerard Gallant. I'm not going to be surprised if he's hired, not too soon. Once these teams start looking for a new coach, because he has that pedigree. He has a conference final appearance with the Rangers. He has a Stanley Cup final appearance with the Golden Knights. Never made the play. Did he make the playoffs with the Panthers? He did in 2015-16. But again, never won around for them. That's when they lost to the Islanders. So yeah, again, it'd be very interesting to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, and for those wondering why we're not giving like more excitement or more energy, this happened almost a week ago now, so we've had time to relax and sit on our thoughts and give a less biased analysis, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't really upset at the firing when it first came through.
No,
like
I
you
wasn't.
said,
I wasn't
it was
shocked.
embarrassing, the
Yeah.
series against the Devils. Can't happen.
Yeah, you and I, after the first round ended, we were both going,
Yeah.
I think Gallant is going to get fired, because I remember texting you, I don't know how they justify bringing him back after what just happened. And they didn't.
Right. And if you remember earlier in the season, around the time where Trouba threw his helmet against the Blackhawks, right before you went to MSG to see them face the Blues, the popcorn. Yeah. But my point is, right during that time when the Rangers were really struggling, fans were calling for Gerard Gallant to get fired. So I want to remind fans that, and people maybe who aren't in tune with the Rangers too much, that this is really nothing new. Like, when Rangers fans have a very, very short amount of patience, especially with head coaches, especially coming off of the year that this team had against the Tampa Bay Lightning, losing in 6 games. Like, they had a fantastic playoff run, and we were really excited for the next year. And it just seemed like, Shades, the team just took a step back.
Yep.
Outside of, Shesterkin took a step back too. Shesterkin was good in the playoffs, but he took a step back
During the regular
Everybody
season.
did.
Yeah.
Everybody did.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy you brought that up, because they were struggling mightily towards that point. Then the Trouba throw happened. Then the popcorn game against St. Louis happened. And they actually woke up for about 25, 30 games. And then they kind of fell back down, which we both saw, but we really just didn't want to admit going into the playoffs because of what happened at the deadline and all the acquisitions. But it is what it is, and they played a good first 2 games against New Jersey, and then did not look good afterwards. Besides Game 6, and hey, with a loaded roster like that, if you're gonna get bounced in the first round, your head coach is almost always gonna get fired. So
Absolutely. And the only thing I'll add on top of that, and I know you've mentioned this in the past, I've mentioned this in the past, losing 2 consecutive series when you have a 2-0 lead is unacceptable.
yep.
And the Rangers had a real chance to go into that Stanley Cup final. Would they have beaten Colorado? Probably not. I mean, Colorado was
Probably
a
not.
juggernaut, but
Yeah.
we would have given them a fight, and I would have liked to see what we would have done with that chance. You win Game 3. You put a stranglehold on that series, and that goes for last year, and that goes for this year. And again, go to this year. They win Game 3 at MSG, the first game at home, and they go on to win that series in 4, 5, or 6 games. Look at the Eastern Conference right now. No Boston, no Toronto, no Tampa Bay. Now it's, they would have had to go through Carolina with no Teuvo Teravainen, no Andrei Svechnikov, a very depleted roster. I think we would have had a good chance against Carolina. Yeah. Making it to the conference finals against the Florida Panthers, that's our avenue, the Stanley Cup right there. And because Gerard Gallant couldn't rally his troops up 2-0 for 2 consecutive series, it leaves a lot to be desired with a very talented team. You are muted.
Sorry. Wow, I did it to myself.
Yeah, not me this time.
Yeah, I purposely had to mute myself there, though.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, I mean, it happens to you once every episode. It's gonna happen. Of course, it had to happen to me. But yeah, one last thing that I forgot to mention earlier was the report that came out about Gallant and Drury basically getting into a shouting match. Was it after Game 4?
I believe it came after Game 4. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's something. I mean, that's when you knew, like, changes. There was a good possibility that a change was going to be made behind the bench after that if they lost to New Jersey, which they did. But I mean, how often do we hear about something like that happening and the coach actually coming back the next season after losing a playoff series like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. You're right. I hear you. It's a results-driven business, and biggest market, one of the biggest markets in the NHL. You got to capitalize when you have a good team. 2 top draft picks who have not developed the way that you want them to develop, a superstar player that kind of disappears in the playoffs, multiple superstar players actually who disappear in the playoffs. Yeah, a lot left to be desired. But I think the Rangers are going to have a better year next year. And Shades, this transitions me, the next head coach of the New York Rangers.
I was just about to ask you that.
I want to ask you first. What do you got?
Well, I mean, I don't think they've started their search yet, so I'm just gonna really give my opinion on, I guess, a top 3. Okay. I think Knobloch and Hartford should get serious consideration because he's been with Hartford for, has it been 5 years now? Or 4?
Yeah, he's been there quite a while, and he's had a lot of success. So
he has had a lot of success, and which is a reason why I think he should be given serious consideration, because he has worked with some of the prospects currently in the system, like Cooley, Brodzinski's been on the team. I'm drawing a lot of blank on names.
Hedo spent a lot of time in Hartford when he was struggling, and look at him now.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Dylan Garand, also the goalie prospect. Yeah. Hey, man. It's like winning in the AHL isn't easy, and he's had a lot of success. So I think he would be a top 3 option for me. One of the other names I heard was the former Florida coach. What was his name? Was it Andrew Burnett or Burnett?
Andrew Brunette.
Brunette? All right. I keep forgetting the pronunciation of his last name. But I didn't think he was terrible as Florida head coach when he was there. I just didn't think that Florida was in the best position in that time, kind of like what I mentioned earlier with Gallant and his timely tenure with Columbus. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I thought Florida was okay during that time with the roster they had. I think he should be given some consideration. And an interesting one that people seem to be like tribalists when it comes to this particular coach, either a hard yes or a hard no, with nobody in between. I mean, with nothing in between. Peter Laviolette, I
Mhm.
think, in my personal opinion, he is going to end up as one of the finalists for the Rangers. Now, granted, I like Laviolette as head coach. He won a cup with Carolina back in '06. He had a lot of success with Nashville. The only problem with him is I don't know if this Rangers team would be the best situation for him. I don't know if that would be the best combo.
Yep. I mean, well said. I'll give you my top three as well. And I don't want to put them in any particular order. I mean, Andrew Brunette is currently in New Jersey. People make mistakes. He had a DUI incident, earlier this year. I just don't know if the New York Rangers organization wants to do that. But then again, I wouldn't hate it. Just from a head coaching perspective, I wouldn't hate Andrew Brunette coming in and taking the job. I think Spencer Carberry, who is the assistant to Sheldon Keefe in the Toronto Maple Leafs, behind the bench. He's 41 years old. He was AHL Coach of the Year with the Hershey Bears in 2021, and the Rangers have noted interest in him. If they want to go the young route, that's where they can go. I love Peter Laviolette personally. I get it. I get why people are looking at it as a hard no, but he unlocks offenses on teams. And what was the issue this year? I think Ranger fans have to understand that the defense is never going to be perfect. Okay, your number one defenseman is an offensive-minded defenseman in Adam Fox. You're gonna have your defensive woes. You signed Jacob Trouba to 8x8 in a contract that you cannot move. You have young players like Schneider and Miller who, although are getting better, are going to make mistakes. Ryan Lindgren, same thing. So I think I wouldn't bring in a defensive minded coach. I would bring somebody in who could unlock the offense. There's two things that needs to happen: unlocking the offense and developing the young players. And I don't know how well Peter Laviolette has done necessarily in the past with developing young players. So that's something that's going to have to be taken into consideration. But one person I want to talk about, and he's not going to get this job, but working in the ECHL, he's just stood out to me. Jason Payne is the coach of the Cincinnati Cyclones in the ECHL. And Cincinnati came to Atlanta, and they were like clockwork the way that they played. And again, ECHL to NHL, I know that's a huge jump, and it's probably going to be multiple years. He coached the ECHL All-Star Game this year. He was a part of the Buffalo Sabres development camp, and Don Granato called him one of the most valuable contributors at that camp. He has time, but I think he's earned it. I don't think he's going to be the coach of the Rangers, but I just wanted to throw his name out there. But for me, I circle back to one guy, Shades, and that's Joel Quenneville. If Joel Quenneville is let back into the NHL, I think that the Rangers will hire him. I think if the meeting goes well with Gary Bettman, I think they will hire him. And I think that increases the likelihood of the chance of Patrick Kane maybe signing a 1-year, like very, very low dollar amount to play under Joel Quenneville and Artemi Panarin. Just something I want to throw out there. If Gary Bettman says I'll take whatever he is, if he's on the banned list or whatever, like just take him off. I think that the Rangers will hire him. What do you think about Quenneville?
Personally, I actually think he's a very good coach. If honestly, like you said, if this whole thing does get dropped with his ban, Rangers have shown that they don't really give a crap about like stuff behind the scenes, which is sort of good, sort of bad, depending on the situation. This circumstance is bad, though. I think it would be personally a PR disaster, but at the same time, he's a good head coach. So you got to take it with a grain of salt if it hypothetically happens. But I mean, the guy won 3 Stanley Cups for a reason because he's a good coach.
And, let me also note the last 2 years he was in the league, 2020, 2021, 56 games with the Panthers, 37, 14, and 5. Okay.
No, he was a good coach with the Panthers, man.
He was. And then he coached the next year with the Panthers, only 7 games. You know what their record was through 7 games? 7 and
Six
0.
and one, 7 and
7 and
0.
0.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying, if he's available, put all the other Kyle Beach stuff aside. It is horrible what happened. I
Yes.
don't think you can blame Joel Quenneville solely. I don't think you can blame Joel Quenneville. I think everybody, a part of the Blackhawks organization who were decision makers, deserves to take on some of that responsibility of what happened. But it's been a couple of years now, and Joel Quenneville deserves a spot in the NHL, and he deserves a spot behind the bench of the New York Rangers. That's my guy.
Yeah. Now, when was the meeting requested with him and Bettman? When is
Well,
that scheduled for, or did it
gonna
already
be
happen?
it's gonna be him, Bettman, and Bowman. I can find that out. But
Now that you mentioned Bowman, side note, very overrated GM. Just my opinion.
I concur. Hope the Penguins hire him.
That would be funny.
But after the playoffs are finished is when this meeting is going to happen. So right around the time when the Rangers would probably make their decision, they're waiting on that. They got to be waiting on that. But also, I didn't mention his name. I 100% agree with you about Chris Knoblauch. I think he should definitely deserve consideration. Took the Hartford Wolfpack, who was a struggling team the last couple of years, to the conference finals against the Hershey Bears. Not the conference finals, the semifinals against the Hershey Bears, I think. So credit to him. He deserves a spot as well. Just deserves consideration.
Yeah, and I'm always a little bit of a fan of coaches that got an extended look in the minors, getting their first actual look as a head coach in the NHL. So I always kind of root for the underdog in that situation. But I
do
mean,
too.
hey man, the guy is he's shown results as an AHL coach. So if he doesn't get serious consideration, that's just going to raise another red flag for me.
And one more thing on Knoblauch. I think it's very interesting to note that Chris Knoblauch never coached Alexi Lafreniere or Capo Caco. You don't know how he's going to influence their development. These are two players that step straight into the NHL. So, like you said, if he makes that jump and he excels, I wouldn't be surprised if the development of Caco and Lafreniere comes after that. So the good thing is, Shades, there are a ton of options and a ton of good options too. And that's something that I didn't really believe when I first heard that Gallant got fired. I was a little bit worried that the pickings were going to be relatively slim, but having this conversation, they're not. There are a lot of good choices.
Yeah, and lastly, I just want to go back to Laviolette for a second, because when I said I don't think the Rangers have the right team on paper to coach him, think about Laviolette's teams. What's the one common theme? Hard and heavy. Now granted, the Rangers have a bunch of good guys on defense that fit that description. Trouba, Schneider, Lindgren. Possibly Miller, depending on where his head is at during the games.
They need Miller to become that player.
Yeah. Then you look at the forward group. It kind of drops off a little bit from there. You have Kreider. Mika, that's not really his game. That's not Panarin's game. Trocheck can be that player. Trocheck, I think, would be a good fit under Laviolette. Barclay Goodrow, I think, would be better under Laviolette. Then you kind of have everyone else. Because for a fact that's not Heedle's game. That's not really Kako's game. It's definitely not Lafreniere's game right now. So there would have to be some changes in terms of making that a good combination of team and coach. But do I think he's a bad coach? No. Do I think this is the right situation for him? Probably not.
Well, I agree with you as far as the forward group outside of two players, actually, Kako and Lafreniere. And I would argue that Lafreniere and Kako need to become those hard and heavy players to reach their potential. I mean, what kind of player, if Lafreniere reaches his potential, do you want him to be? I'll give you a comparison. I want him to be just like Matthew Tkachuk. I want him to build strength.
I don't
want
know
him
if that's
to
going
get
to
in front
happen, but
he could. He's got the skill. He's gritty. He just needs to build himself up, gain some strength. He loves to get in front of the net. Look at all of Lafreniere's goals. Dirty, garbage goals, So he knows how to get to those dirty areas, man. So don't, I think Laviolette could potentially unlock that. And as far as Kako, I think Kako a little bit less so. But I think he uses his body so well along the walls that you have to, again, become that type of player. Look at Mikko Rantanen, kind of what he's become in Colorado. So I don't think it's the worst choice. I don't think Laviolette is the best choice, but I wouldn't be upset if we hired him. That's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you on that. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Interesting summer. But first, let's get through the playoffs first because a lot of good hockey. A lot of good hockey. All right. So, man, that was a good discussion, Liam. So,
Indeed,
I
it
mean,
was
we
indeed.
did bring up a former Chicago head coach. And speaking of Chicago, well, they won the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, didn't they?
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Uh, now, I love how people are going, "Oh, this shit's rigged. This shit's rigged." I'm like, dude, they finished second to last. Like it would have been rigged if like Calgary came out of nowhere, even though I don't think they were capable of getting the first overall pick. But it would have been, I think Vancouver finished 11th. Like they would have been the last possible team to snab Bedard. Like that would have been fixed in my mind if a team jumped 10 spots. But I mean, Chicago, they jumped one spot to get the number one overall pick. The only two teams that changed place were, well, I mean, technically, wait, did Chicago jump three or two? I mean,
I believe
excuse
they
me,
jumped.
one or two.
I believe they jumped two.
Yeah, because I
Was
know
it
Columbus, they
was
lost
it
a spot.
Columbus, San Jose, and Anaheim, or was San Jose a little bit? Let me.
You know, you think this would be fresh in my mind after it just happened like 2 days ago, or excuse me, like 4 days ago at this point.
It
So,
was Chicago was third with
yeah,
11
so
and a half
Chicago
percent.
jumped two spots and they were the only team to jump. So, with considering with what's happened in the draft lottery the last couple years, this is arguably the least amount of rigged it's been. if you
Yeah,
if you want to go that route, because remember the year that Colorado finished dead last, had one of the worst seasons of all time, and ended up getting the fourth overall pick.
mm-hmm. Yep, I
Three
remember.
teams jumped them, and I remember I was not a fan at the time, but looking at what's happened since, I'm glad they didn't win the draft lottery that year.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, as far as Chicago is concerned, Shades, I think for me, I think a couple of things go into why people are calling it rigged. I don't think it's rigged. I mean, was I a little upset? Yeah, but do I think it's rigged? No. Um, the thing with me with the Blackhawks is the market. And the Chicago Blackhawks have been one of the most popular and successful teams for a very long time now. And they came off a dynasty run with where they capitalized off selecting Patrick Kane, number one overall, in 2007, and won three Stanley Cups. And probably outside of Tampa Bay, the last dynasty that we've seen in the NHL, right up there with the Islanders of the 80s. And now, just after a few years at the bottom of the league, I think it's what, been 2 years at the bottom of the league, 3 years at the bottom of the league now, they get a generational talent who might be better than Connor McDavid,
Which is a scary thought.
which is a scary thought. So for me, I think it comes down to why people think it's rigged comes down to three things: the market, the success that the Blackhawks have had, and the player that they are going to be selecting. Same thing happened in the NBA with Victor Wembanyama, and the San Antonio Spurs. Same thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for the Blackhawks and their fans, I guess. But it really stinks. I really would have liked to see Anaheim or Columbus win this draft lottery. I think it would have made a lot more sense. And for Columbus, I mean, you're not going to get your generational talent. If it's not going to be now, when is it going to be? So really, really feel bad for them for sure.
Well, I mean, the thing that Columbus has going for them, this is a very deep draft, especially. I mean, look, Connor Bedard is a generational prospect, but I mean, the fact that you still have third overall pick in a draft class this stacked at the top, you're still going to get a very good player.
Yeah, and just going through the mock drafts because of course it's mock draft season now, right? I think Bedard is the consensus number one. You got Fantilli, who's playing college hockey at Michigan. He's probably going to go number two. And then after that, you got Will Smith, I think, is one of the big time prospects who put up tons of points in juniors.
Just don't let Chris Rock slap him.
Very good. And Matt Michkov as well, who is a divisive figure over in the KHL. But I concur 100%. This is a very, very deep draft. And even if the Blue Jackets didn't get Connor Bedard, they're going to get a very good player. But for me, Shades, I cannot stress enough how good Connor Bedard is going to be. Like, he's not as explosive as Connor McDavid. I think Connor McDavid is probably the most explosive player we will ever see. Just his ability to go from stop to start and get put on the Jets. But for Bedard, for me, he just reminds me of a player who can knife through the defense, but has the shot of Alexander Ovechkin. Like that good of a shot. And it shouldn't get lost that the day after the Chicago Blackhawks got the number one overall pick, their sales staff sold $1.9 million in season ticket sales for next season. And there are some people that I work with that actually have Blackhawks season tickets, and they are canceling season tickets for Blackhawks fans that have a credit card outside of Chicago. Maybe not season tickets, but I think that it's like a partial plan. But still, like, that's how much the demand is being raised by the news that this one player is going to join the Blackhawks organization. Just to put it in perspective.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because for that to happen for a hockey prospect says a lot.
Oh yes, 100%. I would be very interested to see what happened when, the Oilers drafted McDavid, because you never really know, right? I'm sure there was some excitement from Rangers. I mean, I'm a Rangers fan. I mean, there was a ton of excitement when we selected Lafreniere, but I didn't really run to the season ticket offices and say, oh my gosh, I need season tickets right now because Alexi Lafreniere is a Ranger, but Connor Bedard and generational talents like Connor McDavid, can kind of change that a little bit. So again, I'm happy for Blackhawks fans. They've had an abysmal season. Now maybe Jonathan Toews comes back. Now maybe Patrick Kane comes back and they try to create something fun for the fans next year. So
yeah, but
get a goalie too, Chicago. Come on.
Yeah, Blackhawks need a lot of work, but getting Bedard is going to be a major step in the right direction.
Yes, it is, 100%.
So the night of the draft lottery, we had, if I remember correctly, we had the end of the second round. Because of course we did. Of course both of those things would happen on the same night. And just to quickly recap, the Panthers beat the Leafs, which we're going to circle back to that for different reasons. The Hurricanes basically dismantled the Devils, which was kind of surprising. The Dallas Stars beat the Kraken in 7 tier, and the Vegas Golden Knights proved that the Oilers are continuous frauds. So, yeah, dude, this has been a wild playoff so far.
Been one of the crazier playoffs I've seen in a number of years, for sure. And I guess just starting with Florida and Toronto, I mean, right? You knew that Toronto finally wins a round, and then they get into the second round against a team that's also not made it past the second round in quite a while, that they were going to lay an egg, and they did in 5 games. I mean, I thought this was a real opportunity for a number of teams that have not made extended runs in the Stanley Cup playoffs to do so. Big missed opportunity for Toronto. I mean, do you have anything to say on that series? I mean,
hey, they finally got past their first round demons and just to hit a whole other wall of demons.
And we will talk about the Maple Leafs. We're not done with that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna circle back to that 100%.
For sure. And now the Hurricanes and the Devils. I mean, yeah, again, a little bit surprised that the Hurricanes dismantled them as easily as they did. But again, I mean, I think it's the New York Rangers that are the only team that does not like to score goals against rookie goalies. And I think it definitely says something that a Carolina Hurricanes team that have had their fair share of troubles scoring goals this season just decides to put what? They put like 6 past Akira Schmid, multiple games in that series. Freddie Anderson was really, really good. Look, good for Carolina. I'm glad that they're finally back in the conference final. And if there's one team in the Metropolitan Division that was going to make it this far, I'm happy it was the Canes.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
dude, Rob Brindamore, freaking great coach, man.
he is
Great
one
coach.
of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, no,
Quite
he
frankly.
100% top five.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
Argue.
One day we got to have a Pucks and Brews episode where we rank all NHL head coaches. That'll be fun.
Ooh, I kind of like that idea.
It's a good one.
That is a good idea for a future episode. So let's move on to what happened in the West. Dude, the
Yes,
Kraken put up a great fight against Dallas.
they did, man. They put up a great fight. And again, it's just so disappointing for me because they beat a Colorado Avalanche team in the first round that is coming off of a Stanley Cup. And it's just their momentum just kind of got ripped away a little bit. But 7 games, that game 7 was very tight. Seattle got a late goal, ended up being a 1-goal game. Fantastic first playoff run in the history of the Seattle Kraken franchise. But Dallas continues to prove me wrong, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been low on Dallas and, good for them. And as far as Vegas, another team that's proving me wrong. And, Vegas and Edmonton, I mean, this was Edmonton's year of shades. I just said it before
Mm.
when talking about Toronto. There are a lot of teams who had a chance to make their mark in this postseason and a big missed opportunity for the Edmonton Oilers. And Shades, I know you're going to agree with me. The reason why they lost this series, Stuart Skinner,
Yeah.
the goaltending. And, and it's been the story for however long Connor McDavid's been a member of the Edmonton Oilers since 2015-16, since he was drafted #1 overall. Hasn't been, I mean, maybe the defense is a little bit has taken some criticism, but it hasn't been the forward group. It's the goaltending. And this year it's no different. So very
Yeah,
disappointing.
that seems to be a common theme for the Oilers, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? They were going up against a goaltender against the Vegas Golden Knights. Who did they have? They had Aiden Hill because they had Laurent Brossoit go down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's battle of the, Stuart Skinner was a starter most of the season. Aiden Hill, was a backup fringe AHL type guy. And he knocks you out in the second round. Because I think if Edmonton gets past Vegas, I think that they get past Dallas. So, or Seattle, quite frankly. So just I would be very, very disappointed if I were an Oilers fan. And this offseason, you gotta fix the problem in that. It's got to be the priority. You got Ekholm, you got Draisaitl and McDavid. You're finally putting a good complement of players around your superstars. Excuse my language. Get a freaking goalie, okay? Get a freaking goalie.
Yeah, they 100% need to. Now, the funny thing is, when I did my initial bracket, the only team that's left that I legitimately had in my final four was Dallas. Yeah.
Was Dallas. Okay. Like that.
Yeah, because for whatever reason, I just had this feeling that they were going to make the conference final. And, well, I mean, at least I got one out of the four, right? Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I got none, so you got more than me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Vegas made it this far though. I'm really not.
For me, it was just the goaltending. And again, good on them. They continue to prove me wrong, and they got a game 1 win last night. But yeah, good for the Golden Knights, and this might just be their year. It might be.
I would love to see it. I'd be perfectly honest. You want to know what would be really cool? A Vegas, Florida Stanley Cup final. That would be cool.
Hmm.
Two
I was thinking
teams,
to
but
myself,
because you
yeah,
want to know why?
yeah. What do you got?
We're guaranteed a first-time cup winner if
Love it.
that happens.
That would be very cool.
Yeah,
Um, I just like for the style of play, I'd like to see Vegas and Carolina. I think that would be very fun.
that would be cool too.
As well. But Vegas fans might have an aneurysm if they lose to another Metropolitan Division team in the Cup final. I mean, be tough sledding. But
Well, look
so,
at the bright side. At
yeah,
least when they lost the last time in a cup final, they lost to an all-time great.
they did. They
So,
did. And a player that needed a Stanley Cup. And
yes,
yeah, for sure.
that literally was Washington's last shot. So,
It was, yeah, it definitely felt that way. So
yeah. But yeah, man. Vegas, Dallas, Florida, Carolina. And well, I mean, we're underway in the conference finals. Each series has gone one game so far. And let's start off in the East, where, oh boy, 4 overtimes in game one. Dear Lord, I am so glad I didn't even attempt to stay up for this. I was
well,
trying to listen on the NHL app with the radio broadcast. I'm in bed trying to listen. I'm like this. just like trying to pay attention, like completely zoning out every 30 seconds. As soon as the first overtime ended, I tapped out. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to bed. It's gonna be a long day tomorrow. I gotta work both jobs. And
Well,
then next thing
yeah.
you know, it goes four overtimes, and I wake up and go, oh, thank God I didn't stay up for that.
Well, you know who did stay up for it? I was at
You're a
a
trooper.
under normal circumstances, I probably wouldn't have, to be honest. I mean, I'm a huge hockey fan, but I mean, come on. I mean, 2 a.m. on a work night, we're adults now. It's hard enough to get time to record
See,
Pucks and Brews
the
and not
difference
get sleep.
between this one and the Florida Columbus five overtime one,
Tampa,
I
yeah.
mean Tampa Columbus, sorry. That one started at like 3 p.m. So we
That was an
didn't have an
afternoon.
excuse. This one we
Yep.
had an excuse.
You're absolutely right. But I went to a rec game with a few of work buddies, and after their game, we went upstairs to the bar and watched the Panthers game. Before the game, before the overtime started, I was like, "All right." I came out of the bathroom and I just had this rejuvenated just thought process. And don't ask why I had a rejuvenated thought process out of the bathroom. I don't know why the hell I said that. But I just said to my buddy, I'm just like, give me $50 on the Panthers to win in overtime because and then we watched the first 3 minutes of OT and they won. And I was like, oh my God, the Panthers won in overtime. Let's go. Goal was called back. I'm like, oh my gosh. We end up going back to my apartment complex. 1, 2, 3, 4 overtimes. I don't know how far we were going to go, but I got to sleep at 2:30 a.m. But I got to bed at 2:30 a.m. a winner. So, that felt good. Thank
That's
you,
always a
Matthew
good thing.
Kachuk.
Yeah. And dude, the craziest thing, I don't know what's more impressive, the fact that it went four overtimes or the fact that it was 13 seconds away from going to a fifth overtime.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that kind of wanted to see a fifth overtime. It was a bang bang play, Brett Burns with the turnover, but and right on Kachuk's tape, and it was so funny. Kachuk's celebration. He's like, I don't even want to celebrate with y'all. I'm going off. I'm running to the locker room. I'm getting some shut eye. So no, that was a really fun game, and
Oh,
props
yeah.
to the fans in Carolina for staying that whole time
Yeah.
and watching their team lose must have been tough. So
I had a few friends that were at game one of Rangers Pittsburgh last year. The one that went three overtimes,
I was.
including not including you, had some other people. Nobody was happy after that.
I remember that. Range had a lot of chances, but I knew when Louis Domingue came into the game
Yeah.
to replace Casey DeSmith, and we still couldn't score. And then it was like one of Pittsburgh's only chances, face-off win, deflection by Malkin. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Hmm.
Really? Malkin's
That's
going to be the guy to win this game, huh?
yeah, that's how that game was gonna end. But let's be honest, Kachuk kind of sniped that one.
Oh, he did. That
Yeah.
that was an absolute snipe. And you know what? Credit to the goalies too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Freddie Anderson and Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, uh, absolutely brilliant performance on both sides. There were a multitude of moments where that game could have ended. Like you go back to Tampa Bay against Columbus in their 5 overtime game. There were not a lot of grade A scoring chances in that game. It was just a lot of all right, we're content with just moving the puck out and playing low danger hockey. That game between Carolina and Florida was not low danger overtime hockey. There were a lot of chances, and the goalies kept that game tied, almost as far as 5 overtime. So Freddie Anderson and Sergei Bobrovsky deserve a lot of credit.
Oh, 100%. So, what was your prediction before I completely forgot to like give my predictions out on social media, but I had Florida in seven before the series because I still could not get past the fact that Svechnikov is out for the Hurricanes. It's just like I kept coming back to that. And I have a habit of when I underestimate teams and they go far, that if I keep underestimating them, they're going to keep going farther. So I hope I don't jinx the Panthers in terms of picking them in seven. But I think that was like the ultimate decision that I came to prior to game one.
Right. And for me, prior to game one, I had the Canes in 6. I thought the Canes were going to win this series rather easily, but that's not how I feel now. Because I'm telling you, it's close in net. but Sergei Bobrovsky is on another level. He is on another level. He's the best Sergei Bobrovsky we've seen in a very long time, probably since the first round sweep against the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019. So look, Florida and Columbus and Carolina, two teams that deserve a spot in the Stanley Cup final. But for me, I'm sticking with the Hurricanes, and I still think they're going to win this series. I think it's going to go 7 games, but I think it's going to be really close, and I think it's going to be really tight. But I think the Canes are just more of a well-rounded group and better coached.
It's very hard to argue that.
But Sergei Bobrovsky is the best goaltender in this series, and I would not be stunned if he were to win this series for the Panthers. I wouldn't be shocked. But gun to my head, I am taking the Carolina Hurricanes to reach the Cup final.
All right, so your prior
Canes in 7.
Okay, so your prediction prior to the series was Canes in 6. After game 1, it's Canes in 7. I think I'm going to stick with Florida in 7.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, because
I would like to see either team in the Cup final. You know,
like, I wouldn't
just
hate
for
either
prediction
team.
purposes. You know,
See, the funny thing is about both conference finals, I only am really rooting against one team, and that's Dallas. From the PTSD that they gave me in 2020.
Yeah, I just want to see an exciting Cup final, and I don't really think we're getting a very exciting Cup final. I mean, I guess
we're going to get a good Cup final.
Yeah, I think the reason why Dallas's last Cup final appearance against Tampa Bay wasn't really exciting was because it was in the bubble in front of no fans.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to see what it's like in Texas for a Stanley Cup final. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that should be fun. And speaking of a Stanley Cup final in Texas, we move on to the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights in the Western Conference final. And Vegas, Brett Howden, Rangers legend, wins it for Vegas in game 1. I was watching the end of that game last night going, did Howden really just score? Did Brett Howden really just score? Oh my goodness. I mean, hey, credit to him. He missed basically a wide open net right there, but gets the puck back immediately behind the net. Ottinger gets turned around and basically scores on himself because he got turned around and kicked it into his own net. But credit to Howden for sticking with it. And hey, a greasy goal. That's how you win in the playoffs.
That's absolutely right. Couldn't have said it better myself. So I'm happy for Brett Howden. I mean, he got pretty ripped apart by Rangers fans during his time here. And the only
kind of deservedly so.
The only thing I heard was that Brett Howden is not a bottom 6 player that you want in the playoffs. He's a bottom 6 player you want in the playoffs.
He is now.
He's showing you.
Yeah.
He's showing you. It's not just because he scored a goal. Like, there has been no thought in Vegas, in Bruce Cassidy's mind, to take Brett Howden out of the lineup. He's a mainstay in a team that is on the precipice of the Stanley Cup final. And Ranger fans didn't think he belonged on the 4th line of a rebuilding team.
Hey, that just goes to show you 2-3 years can make all the difference with a change of scenery.
Some time, a change of scenery, and some coaching.
Yep.
And that's why, going back to the Rangers, it's just so pivotal they get the right coach to develop these players, because Bruce Cassidy has really helped develop Brett Howden into a solid bottom 6 player for them. So,
yep.
But as far as predictions go, Shades, I mean, I think Vegas is going to win the series, and I think Vegas is going to win the series in 6 games. I do. I think the tougher bracket. And they look like a team of destiny right now. They do.
I'll be completely honest with you. My prediction for the series is 99% bias because I'm rooting against Dallas. Sorry to I know a few people that are Stars fans. I'm sorry, not sorry. But dude, I had in my original bracket, which just looks frigging awful right now, I had Edmonton beating Dallas in the conference final. Don't ask me why I was thinking that, because that's what I did. But now Vegas is the significantly better team compared to Edmonton. And don't get me wrong, I actually really like Dallas's team on paper. Rupe Hintz is going absolutely off this playoffs. And he was stolen from me in my one of my fantasy drafts last season, which caused a whole commotion, which was fantastic. But Man, Dallas has got a good team, but Vegas, man, they're just proving that last year missing the playoffs was a complete fluke with all the injuries, and that team is loaded, man. I don't know
Uh,
if I can bet against them.
yeah, and I agree with you. And that's even with looking at the goaltending and how much of a disparity there is.
Yeah,
Jake Ottinger against Aiden Hill, and we're still going with the Golden Knights.
yeah.
So, and again, like you said, giving credit to the Dallas Stars roster. I like their roster a lot too. Rope Hintz has been spectacular. Jason Robertson has been great. Joe Pavelski's finally finding his game. After what was a tough regular season for him. Their defense is good. Miro Heiskanen is a number one defenseman.
Yes, yes.
Um, Behind the bench, Pete DeBoer. I didn't love Pete DeBoer, but now he's in the conference final. So, good on him. He helped, turn around the Dallas team. I thought Dallas going from Rick, right? Was it Rick Bonus last year? Going from Rick Bonus, and switching over was going to be a bad choice, but it has not. It's just worked out really, really well. But I still think Vegas is winning this series. I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, what was your pre-series prediction and current prediction?
My pre-series prediction was Vegas in 6, and my prediction now is Vegas in 6.
I think I'm gonna go Vegas in 7. I think that was honestly, I didn't really have a pre-series prediction because I was just not, I've been working a lot, but I probably would have said 6, but now I'm going Vegas in 7 on the sole basis that I want to see a game 7 between both of these teams.
As do I. Let's get the heart rates of Dallas Stars fans up one more time after a game 7 against Seattle.
So funny story, as the game was going on last night when Vegas tied it, I texted one of my friends, what did I text them? I texted him, "Oh, Dallas, please fuck off." Because I'm rooting for Vegas. But hey, after that game 1, I think this is going to go 7, and I think there's going to be a very good series. And I'm hoping that I only really have to work one night next week, so I'll be able to watch plenty of hockey. Thank God. But then it's going to be work again the following week. But yeah, Vegas in 7, and I'm hoping for a Vegas, Florida, just Stanley Cup final, just so my predictions are right. That's really it.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said earlier, out of the East, it doesn't really matter who makes it out of the East. I'm going to be pretty happy with either Carolina or Florida making the Cup final. And again, I think Dallas had their Stanley Cup appearance, a couple years ago. Now it's Vegas's chance, redemption on their first ever season where they lost to the Capitals. So, and I think they got, again, team of destiny. I think that they're going to win the finals.
Yeah, I hope so. But
We'll see.
yeah, that's a topic we're going to revisit in about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we just finished talking about the recap for the second round, and one team has had a very interesting series of events play out. And well, we were going to talk about this anyway, and now's the time. Maple Leafs are not renewing Dubas's contract.
I mean, absolutely wild. I mean, a lot of people are saying that Dubas overplayed his hand at the press conference, saying that it was a really challenging year for me and my family, and I'm going to take a step back here for a second and reevaluate. I think that Dubas thought that he was indispensable to the organization, and Brendan Shanahan said, "Oh, no, you're not," and canned him, and sent him packing. So, I mean, Dubas is a talented GM. I mean, look, he was in his, early 30s when he accepted a job, late 20s when he was in the Maple Leafs organization as, one of the assistant GMs. So, and he didn't trade away any of the core players. I think as a general manager, I think trust and loyalty is a big thing. And he has said from the very start, I'm not trading any of the core guys. And he never did.
And I quote, "We can and we will."
Mm-hmm.
And now he's gone.
And now he's gone. So, but I do think he's a good GM. I think he's going to be the next general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I really do. I think it's a match made in heaven. I think as well, as long as Kyle Dubas' family, and then that's a situation that's fine for them. I think that the Fenway group that owns the Pittsburgh Penguins wants to bring in Dubas because he's smart. He's talented. He hasn't had a lot of success. Yeah, did the Maple Leafs make a mistake here? I don't think they did. Look, this is Brendan Shanahan's ninth season as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs in a very,
One,
very high role.
one playoff series win.
One playoff series win. So, I like to say that general managers have one bullet when saving their job, and that's firing the head coach. Well, Brendan Shanahan had one bullet to save his job, and that was firing Kyle Dubas. So maybe one more shot with a new general manager. Tough situation in Toronto, but I think clearly what has gone on in the last number of years has not worked, and you need to switch something up. And I wouldn't be surprised if Keefe going as well is going to follow. I wouldn't
Yeah,
be
I'm
shocked.
glad you brought that up with Shanahan because on Monday, when I was doing chirp and chat with Ryan and Justin, I actually was the one to bring that up about Shanahan because I even said he's been here a while. Dubas was his guy. They've won. They finally got over the first round hump, and to immediately lose in five, how much is his job in jeopardy? And I think now we saw it was pretty high up there in terms of red hot with him on the hot seat.
It was. It's again results driven business. And I think maybe if the Maple Leafs had gotten knocked out in 6 or 7, maybe it would have been a little bit different. But to go down 3-0
Yeah.
and to not have the goaltending behind Ilya Samsonov when he got injured to step in and, not see that much of a drop off wasn't there. And that was the big criticism with Dubas, right? I think I remember going on Pucks and Brews with you before the season even started. And me and you both said if the Maple Leafs fail, it's going to be because of the goaltending. And it wasn't because of the goaltenders, it was because of the lack of depth at that position. And that falls right on Kyle Dubas.
Remember what I also said before the season?
What
This
did you say?
that this would be the year the Leafs finally win around when their goaltending is the biggest question mark it's been in years.
Yep. And
Well,
that's the
look
reason
what
why they
happened.
lost too.
Yeah. It's the reason why they got out of the first round. I mean, kind of by luck, but it's also the reason why they lost.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Spot on. So, I mean, where do they go from here? I don't know. I think probably Brendan Shanahan's going to try and bring in a more experienced GM,
Yeah.
And they'll go from there. But let me ask you a question on the Maple Leafs front, real quick.
Hit me.
Do you think whoever comes in is going to trade one of the core four players? And I understand that the contracts are somewhat immovable, but do you think that's a realistic expectation for this Leafs team?
I think so.
And
I
if they
really
trade,
do
and if
think
they
so.
trade one of the core four, who is it?
See, here's the thing. If I'm a GM coming in, it's got to be either Marner or Tavares because you have William Nylander on a sweetheart deal.
6.5.
Now, granted, he probably has the most trade value out of the four because of that contract. But if I'm a GM, I'm not getting rid of him. Like he is a heart and soul player of that team, and he shows up continuously. And you have a guy arguably with 50 goal potential at that cap hit. Why are you trading him if you want to compete?
I'm with you.
So I think it's going to be Marner or Tavares. It's probably going to be Marner because I think that he has the no move clause. Tavares, I'm just double checking that right now. And Cap Friendly was open to the Maple Leafs page. Yeah, Tavares has a full no move clause, and Marner has no protection.
What about
So
Matthews?
no protection.
What are your thoughts about trading Matthews?
If they trade Matthews, they might as well just go full rebuild at that point and trade everyone.
Well, I mean, Matthews says he wants to stay, but he's 1 year away from becoming an unrestricted free agent. I don't think they should trade him either, but I just don't think it should be kept out of the conversation. I agree with you. I think trading Nylander would be a huge mistake. But the reason why I bring up this conversation is that it's really a situation of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And looking back at Kyle Dubas's tenure, made a lot of smart moves. I really like what he did at this past year's trade deadline. I thought he
Yeah.
set up the Maple Leafs to be in a position to win. But the nail in the coffin of Kyle Dubas was signing John Tavares to that contract. That was the nail. That was it. Because Dallas wouldn't give John Tavares that contract. Go back to when he was an unrestricted free agent. Dallas wouldn't give it to him. Tampa Bay wouldn't give it to him. The only team that would give him that $11 million or 10 and a half, whatever he was at, was the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's what's weighing them down.
If
and
I
it's
remember,
really a shame that Mitch Marner is going to have to be the casualty for that decision because he's really super talented.
here's the thing. I remember the Sharks offering 12 and a half million, and Tavares turned them down because he simply didn't want to play there.
And then they threw 11 and a half at Erik Karlsson. So,
yeah, well, I mean, Erik Karlsson, I mean, he had a career resurgence of a season, and which was phenomenal to witness.
No, he definitely did. But for me,
that contract is almost immovable.
Right. I'm with you.
No, but I agree with you. It's like that was the start of things with the Tavares contract. And then obviously things did not go smoothly with any of the negotiations between Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, more specifically Nylander, but that contract is looking fantastic right now. The other two contracts are arguably what's weighing the team down right now. But granted, Matthews scored 60 last year. Are you really going to argue about an $11 million contract? No. Marner finally put up 100 points. Are you going to argue about his contract? I mean, I guess because he's a winger, but at the same time, he's also a very good player. Their problem has been all the depth moves that they've made. I mean, look at all, besides this year, leading up to this year, look at all the depth moves that Dubas made for the team. Pretty much all of them backfired in some way. I remember the Nick Foligno trade. That heavily backfired. All the other trade deadlines, something went wrong. Whether a guy got injured, whether they were forced to trade a guy after a playoff loss because they couldn't keep him because of the contract, just the Matt Murray deal, acquiring him, we all knew that was going to be a terrible idea. Ended up being one. I mean, there's so many things you could point to. So many things backfired. And this was Dubas's last shot in the chamber, so to speak. He had no other choice. And you and I both are in agreement on this one. He did what he had to do, and everything ended up being a good move. They still flamed out.
And Shades, look at the 4 teams left in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Florida Panthers, who did they acquire at the trade deadline? Can you tell me one player they acquired?
Nobody. Literally no one.
The Carolina Hurricanes, outside of Shane Gostisbehere and Jesse Puljujarvi, can you tell me one player that they acquired at the trade deadline? The Vegas Golden Knights, outside of Barbashev, can you tell me one player they acquired at the trade deadline?
Nope.
Dallas, outside of Max Domi, can you tell me one player they acquired at the trade deadline? Maybe going out and look at all these teams that flamed out in the first round. Tampa's Hall for Tanner Jeannot, knocked out in the first round. Boston, Garnet Hathaway and Dmitry Orlov, out in the first. Tyler Bertuzzi, out in the first round. The Rangers, Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, Nico Mikkola, out in the first round. Like all these teams out in the first round, and the 4 teams that are remaining are the ones that didn't change their roster too much. And maybe, just maybe, the Maple Leafs should take a page out of the 4 teams that are left in the playoffs book.
Yep, 100%. But yeah, Dubas is already gone, and oh boy, that's going to be an interesting GM search. But I'm glad you brought that up about the trade deadlines for the 4 remaining teams. Look at what the Capitals did from 2015 to 2017. They acquired the big fish free agent to be at the trade deadline. Couldn't get past the second round. What happened the year they won the cup? They traded a 3rd-round pick for a depth defenseman in Michael Kempney, who ended up being a key piece to that Stanley Cup team.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you. The big fish free agent almost never pays off.
And look at
the big fish free agent to be deadline acquisition almost never pays off.
Look at our beloved New York Rangers. Last year, they brought in guys that were not jumping off the page. Andrew Kopp, third line, second line center.
Frank
Frank
Vetrano,
Vetrano, yeah, again, same type of thing. So
Tyler
just
Mott.
Tyler Mott, Justin Braun, so like all these guys, I think probably after the trade deadline 2 years ago, there are a lot of Ranger fans saying, you gave up a conditional second that could turn into a first for Andrew Kopp and
Which it
Frank
ended up doing.
Vetrano, who's doing nothing on a worse team in the Florida Panthers. And they came in, and those players were a big, big reason why we made it to the conference final. So I think it's a discussion that should be had more often, what we just talked about not going after the big trade deadline acquisition and maybe just sticking with what you got and saying to your locker room, I got faith in you.
Yeah.
Says a lot.
Yep.
Because look what Dubas did. He brought in all those guys. What is he saying to that roster that started the season? When you bring in Jake McCabe, when you bring in Ryan O'Reilly, when you bring in Sam Lafferty, when you bring in all of these guys, you weren't good enough before. We need to make you better. And what does that do to your mindset? Tarnishes it.
Now, Dubas did you and I, I'm going to say it again. We both agreed on all the moves Dubas made. They were all good moves. But what's the thing that we keep going back to? What you just said. They had to make all those moves because the team was not good enough. And what is that saying about Dubas's tenure as GM? Not good enough.
It's saying that he just tried to fix instead of trying to create.
Yep.
And
he was GM for 5 years. He had no one to blame but himself.
Yeah, and look at the bottom six players that have come in and out of the Toronto Maple Leafs since Kyle Dubas took over. I mean, Wayne Simmons, Foligno, Spezza before he transitioned into the front office.
Joe Thornton,
like all of these guys. Like if I said Joe Thornton played for the Leafs, like not a lot of people would say, wait, what? When did he play for the Leafs? So yeah, it's just overcorrection for me. Have faith in your roster. I mean, the Florida Panthers were a team that were in the dumps. Like I would not have put a bet on the Florida Panthers to make the conference final with a 10-foot pole going back, 3 quarters into the regular season, but they stuck with it. Had faith in the group, and the group is putting faith into the organization, and look what's happening.
Yep. But Maple Leafs, I have a feeling a big trade is coming this summer with the new GM they hire.
I'm with you.
Yeah, but that's another story for another day.
Right on.
Well, and last but not least for this episode, we have the ongoing saga, the pathetic saga that is the Arizona Coyotes. Oh my, that would have been something. But yeah, man, I mean, there was a vote last week for a new arena in Tempe that got voted down by a large majority. And well, I mean, if this isn't a sign that the team is going to relocate soon, I really don't know what is. What are your thoughts on the situation?
It's a complicated situation, right? The NHL and Gary Bettman's priority is to make the NHL in Arizona work. But the city just didn't. And look, it was a privately funded project to build the arena, but everything around it would have been coming from taxpayer money. So I understand. I get it. I get why people were upset, but personally, I feel like that the Coyotes have a home in the state of Arizona and would like to see them have success there. But it's definitely an unfortunate situation, and I'm very sorry for their fans. And what's to come of it? Who knows? I mean, there are a lot of locations that would like an NHL team: Kansas City, Milwaukee, Houston, Quebec City. There are a multitude of places that would be interested. But what I can tell you is that next year they're playing at Mullet Arena. So that's it. But the CEO, I'm sorry, not the CEO, I believe it was the CEO actually of the Arizona Coyotes made a statement after the vote, and you could just see how dejected rather, he was making that announcement. So it was tough.
Yeah, honestly, it makes the most sense for the team to relocate at this point for both the team and the league. Because I mean, team's not in a good spot right now. They're literally playing at a college arena.
No, they are. And Clayton Keller has expressed frustrations. He's having a conversation with the Coyotes front office saying, I want to play here. The players want to play there.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen a situation like this in a little while since, the Winnipeg Jets. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach prior to the night of the vote that the voters in Tempe were not going to approve it, and that's what happened. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think they're better off in Arizona, or do you think they're better off one of those other markets that I suggested?
Honestly, I think they should just go to Houston because Houston wants a hockey team, and Houston's already a good sports city.
Mhm.
I mean, look at the last two expansion teams. Vegas and Seattle have been resounding successes. Like I just said, Houston is a very good sports market. I think they would do pretty good over there because they would 100% be getting more fans to games. And it honestly, I think it would just make financial sense and logistical sense. So
Yeah, I mean, they have the Toyota Center, right, in Houston, where the Rockets play. And I know that's a market that desperately wants the NHL to come there. And again, you look at what the Dallas Stars have been able to do. If they make the Stanley Cup final, it will be, out of the last, 3 years, 4 years, they've been in the Stanley Cup final 2 times. So, there is success in that state, and fans will come out. It's not going to be an issue of, oh, well, hockey's going to be in Texas. Who cares about hockey in Texas? There are a lot of people who care about hockey in Texas, and more than enough to support two NHL teams. So yeah, I think Houston is a good option as well. I think Kansas City is interesting. I think when you have a player the magnitude of Patrick Mahomes coming out and endorsing the state of Kansas City, I mean, there are a number of things, a number of boxes rather, that are checked with Kansas City. Instant rivalry with the St. Louis Blues, a great sports city with the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, you see how much their fans come out. The Royals, a little bit different, but and they have an arena to host the team. So those are the three things that you really need. I think Quebec City, as much as fans and especially fans up in Canada, would like to see the Nordiques come back. I don't think that's going to happen. And outside of that, Milwaukee. Milwaukee has the Admirals, who are making their extended run in the Calder Cup playoffs. So again, just these areas have had success surrounding the game of hockey. So no matter where you bring the Coyotes, if they were to move, I think would be a resounding success, just like the last two expansion teams, like you said, Seattle and Vegas have been.
yeah, hey, and Dallas, I mean, it's worked. Hockey's worked in Dallas.
It has.
What's to say it won't work in Houston? I think it would.
And look at the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas Mavericks, San Antonio Spurs, Houston Rockets. I mean, you can say that the NBA is a more popular sport in the United States than the NHL is. Okay, is that changing a little bit? Are people starting to realize how great of a sport hockey is in the US? I think it is. So I think if the state of Texas can host 3 NBA teams, they can do the same for 2 NHL teams.
Oh, 100%. I mean, New York technically has 3 hockey teams.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they do. Technically. Buffalo's kind of over there, but
Yeah, they're in the I love how Buffalo is in the actual state portion of New York.
Right, and people don't really recognize them too much.
Yeah.
As being a New York team, right?
Well, actually, no, yeah. Sorry.
It's actually Long Island.
My mind went sideways. I was thinking technically they have 4, but I was like, no, wait, the Bills are an NFL team.
Well, New Jersey's close, but still out of state.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, we'll see. I mean, did you see the Rickroll that the Coyotes did on Twitter yesterday?
I did not, actually.
You did not?
No.
Oh my gosh. So the Coyotes tweeted out, if we get 20,000 likes on this tweet, we'll reveal our new arena plans. And reached obviously 20,000 tweets. And in the replies, it says, here's a link to our new arena plans. And it goes straight to, never gonna give you up.
Yeah. Hold on. I need to see this.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
I found this right now. I need to watch this. Oh, 10 hours. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they put the 10-hour version on there.
Oh, that's good.
And they didn't even try to hide it too, you know. They just put the Squarespace URL. It's like, yeah, this is the most fake thing ever.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's very good for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the Coyotes, but I mean, like it's time to relocate. It for the league, for the team, just for a city that actually wants hockey.
Mhm.
So,
There's not really many other places in Arizona that they can explore for a new arena spot. Tempe, that was it.
yeah, yeah, it was. And
They're not
this
going
is
back to Glendale. I promise you that.
no, no. Glendale, they tried, they failed. They tried to go to Tempe, they tried, they failed. They're where they currently are. Did I say that right? They are where they currently are in a college arena. I mean, they're selling tickets,
Mhm.
but it's a college arena. Like this is not long-term success right here.
It's not.
No,
It's not at all.
no, it's time to move. And personally, I kind of want a team, an NHL team in Houston. So
All right.
yeah, Bettman, please do the right thing. Just get the team out of freaking Arizona for the sake of everybody.
Yeah.
Just move the team to a successful market. That's all we ask. All we ask.
We'll see. See what happens.
Yep. Damn, that was a lot.
That was a hefty one for sure. Hope y'all enjoy.
Hefty, 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 hefty. My God.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy.
Well, yeah. So friggin' yeah, a lot happened. Like Jesus, man. A lot of shit hit the fan.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened, but it's good to catch up, and
Yeah.
we'll see what the NHL brings till the next episode of Pucks and Brews. So
Which hopefully is in between the conference finals ending and the Stanley Cup final beginning, depending on our work schedules, which we're hoping don't suck. But yeah, well, I mean, I just got word during the recording earlier that Mets got rained out tonight, so I'm working a doubleheader tomorrow, so that's going to be a long day. But yeah, a lot of shit going down in the hockey world and a lot more to come because we got the Stanley Cup final approaching. We got post Stanley Cup final with probably the head coaching carousel going nuts. We got the draft a couple weeks after that, and then we got free agency the week after that. So got an action-packed couple weeks coming up.
it's about to be a crazy next couple weeks, but I'm excited for it. We'll see.
Yeah, and then after free agency, we have a nice little break.
Yeah,
So
and then right back to the season.
back to the yeah, we got gonna enjoy my vacation because man, with working during the Stanley Cup playoffs is it's exhausting.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, but hopefully I'll have some time to play video games after hockey season's over because I haven't been able to do that like almost at all.
That would be nice.
Yeah, but
Oh,
yeah, so man, I'm shot and thank God work is canceled today.
yeah, long
Yes,
episode.
long episode indeed, but a good one, quality one, a lot of quality topics. And well, this has been episode 43 of Pucks and Brews. Please follow, like, comment, subscribe, share. All of our social medias are listed in the description below. Please do so on YouTube, like and subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot.
And tell Brendan to come on next episode.
Yeah, somebody comment that, and that might actually get him to come back on. We're trying. I promise we're trying.
I
But
texted in our group chat that the next time Brendan's going to join us is 2056. So let's not make that a reality, please. We'll see
23
if we're
more
still doing
years.
pucks and brews at 50. We'll see.
That would be nice if we were.
Right?
Yeah, hopefully, we just have some more followers by that point, which would be nice. But yeah, we'll see. I am like totally mentally fried right now. So, as always, this has been Pucks and Brews, episode 43. I've been your host, Michael Shade Sparacino, alongside Liam the Chillmaster Godimer, and we will see everyone for the Stanley Cup final, along
That's
with
right.
anything else that might hit the fan in the meantime. Time will tell. Time will tell. But everybody enjoy. Adios.